They told me family is forever, but all I ever was to them was a wallet. The night I finally confronted them, everything I believed about love, loyalty, and blood ties shattered in one moment. I gave my parents $600 a week. Every single week. For an entire year. And you'd think after all that, after the sacrifices I made just to keep them afloat, they'd treat me with at least a shred of respect, right? But no. Instead, they went on a family vacation without me. And when I asked why I wasn't invited, my dad looked me straight in the face and said, "We didn't want you there." My phone hasn't stopped blowing up since, missed calls, texts, voicemails. But before I get into that, let me back up, because honestly, I should have seen this coming. The red flags were there all along. The golden child. Growing up, my sister Laura was always the sun they orbited around. To them, she wasn't just their daughter, she was practically divine. If Laura so much as breathed, it was worthy of applause. Meanwhile, I could have run a marathon barefoot in the snow and still gotten nothing but a shrug. And yeah, I tried to ignore it. Tried to tell myself it didn't matter. But deep down, it cut me every single time. When Dad lost his job, everything escalated. My mom called me sobbing one night, saying they didn't know how they were going to survive, bills piling up, mortgage looming, groceries they couldn't afford. And I couldn't just let them sink. So I stepped up. $600 a week. Do you know what that feels like when you're not rich? When you're scraping by yourself. Every time I hit send, it felt like my stomach dropped, but I told myself it was worth it. That's what family does. You sacrifice. But then it turned into more. "Mike, things are tight, could you maybe send a little extra this week?" Always wrapped in guilt. Always making me feel like if I said no, I'd be letting them drown. And even when I knew my own account was bleeding, I'd still give in. Because they were my parents. Because I thought love meant never saying no. Meanwhile, Laura. She was living like a queen in her cozy little bubble. Married a guy with money, and suddenly she's proof of how smart decisions lead to success. My parents praised her like she was some financial guru. "Mike, you should learn from your sister's choices. Please." The only choice she made was finding a man with deep pockets. But sure, let's all clap for her brilliance. I kept my mouth shut. What good would it do? I knew my role. She was the golden child, and I was the wallet. The lie. Then last week, it all unraveled. I invited them over for a simple cookout, some steaks, a couple of beers, just family time. My mom said they weren't feeling well. "We're just trying to rest, honey. We don't want you catching anything." I offered to bring food, but she shut it down. No, don't come by. But, if you could maybe help us with some medicine, things have been a little tight." I didn't hesitate. Sent $200 instantly. She thanked me like I'd saved their lives. Promised they'd pay me back. Of course, they never do. And then, this is where my world tilted, I got a call from Mr. Jenkins, my elderly neighbor. Sweet old guy, always checking in. He casually mentioned he'd fed my parents fish while they were away. Away? I asked. "Oh, yes, their trip. They should be back soon. Lovely family outing with your sister and her husband." My heart stopped. 6 days. They'd been gone for 6 days. While I was wiring them money. While they told me they were sick. Do you know what it feels like when reality slaps you so hard you can't breathe? I just sat there, staring at the wall, realizing my parents hadn't just left me out, they'd lied straight to my face. The confrontation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark replaying every time I'd stressed over rent, every night I'd skipped dinner so I could afford to send them money, every single moment they'd guilt me while worshipping Laura. The next day, when they finally came home, I decided I couldn't keep swallowing it. I had to say something. I thought I was prepared. But I wasn't ready for what came out of their mouths next. I didn't storm over there right away. If I had, I probably would have said things I couldn't take back. So I forced myself to wait a day, but that night of waiting was nothing but tossing and turning, staring at the ceiling, replaying every lie, every dollar, every guilt trip. By the next evening, I knew I couldn't let it slide. When I pulled up, Laura's car was still in the driveway, dust caked on the sides from the long trip back. The porch light glowed like everything was normal. I knocked, and a few seconds later, my mom opened the door, smiling like we were in some cheesy commercial. "Oh, Mike. What a nice surprise. We were just sitting down to dinner." I stepped inside. The place looked like it belonged in a catalog, fresh flowers on the table, the faint scent of lemon cleaner in the air, and a half-unpacked suitcase leaning against the stairs. It was like the aftermath of a perfect family getaway. I swallowed, then asked, "So, how was the trip?" The second the words left my mouth, I caught it. That flicker in her eyes. That tiny slip before the mask goes back on. She forced a smile. "What trip?" I laughed, short, sharp. "The one you took with Laura and her husband. The one you lied about." Her expression tightened, and her eyes darted toward the kitchen like she was praying my dad would swoop in. But he stayed busy clanking dishes, pretending he hadn't heard. I stood there, waiting. Hoping she'd at least try to explain, to offer me some scrap of honesty. Instead, she crossed her arms. "I don't understand why you're upset. We don't have to tell you everything we do." I froze. "Are you serious? I've been sending you money every week. I paid for that trip without even knowing it. And 3 days ago, you told me you were sick. You asked me for medicine money while you were probably sitting on a beach." That's when Dad finally wandered into the hall, arms crossed. "Watch your tone." I let out a bitter laugh. "No. I'm not watching my tone. I bent over backwards for you, both of you, and you lied to me." Mom sighed dramatically, like I was the problem. "We were just trying to have a nice trip, Mike. Why do you have to make everything about money?" And that was it. My breaking point. I hope you enjoyed it, I said, pulling out my phone. I opened my banking app right there in front of them and canceled the automatic transfers. Mom's face went pale. Dad's jaw locked tight. For the first time in a year, they actually looked worried. Mike, don't be like this, my mom pleaded. You know things are hard for us. I laughed again, sharper this time. Hard? Hard enough to con me out of thousands, but not hard enough to skip a vacation. I turned toward the door, but just as I reached for it, Dad's voice cut through the air. You're just jealous we didn't invite you. I froze. Slowly turned around. Excuse me? He shrugged like it was nothing. That's what this is really about, isn't it? You're throwing a tantrum because we didn't take you. My hands trembled, not from sadness anymore, but from a rage so hot it made my chest hurt. That's the difference between me and Laura, I said quietly. She wouldn't have given you a dime. And you still treat her like royalty. I spent a year making sure you could keep the lights on, and you don't even respect me enough to tell me the truth. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out, slammed the door behind me, and drove off. When I got home, my phone was buzzing nonstop, missed calls from Mom, Dad, even Laura. I ignored all of them. Inside, Anna was sitting on the couch, arms folded, eyes on me. One look, and she knew. I sank down beside her, exhaled hard, and finally said it out loud, I'm done giving them money. She didn't rush to speak. She just nodded, like she'd been waiting for me to get there myself. Truth is, I think I'd been waiting too. For months, I'd felt shackled by this invisible duty, convinced if I didn't keep them afloat, no one would. But that was a lie. Laura could have done it. She and her husband could have bankrolled 100 vacations without blinking. Yet somehow, I was the one bleeding my paycheck dry. And for what? To be treated like an afterthought? Not anymore. Anna leaned back, arms crossed. So what now? You think they'll just accept it? I ran a hand over my face. They'll try to guilt me. Maybe send Laura to talk me down. But I don't care. I'm done. And in that moment, I meant it. Or, at least I thought I did. The next morning, my phone was going insane. Calls, voicemails, texts, constant, relentless. It buzzed on the nightstand like it had a personal vendetta against me. I ignored every single one. By noon, I thought maybe they'd finally give up. That's when a loud, sharp knock rattled the apartment door. Anna looked at me, her brow furrowed. Tell me you didn't invite her. I shook my head, already dreading what I knew was coming. Before I even reached the door, I heard her voice. Mike, I know you're home. Open the door. Laura. I swung it open, and there she was, dressed head to toe in some designer outfit, sunglasses perched on her head like she had just come from a champagne brunch. And right behind her? My parents. I stepped forward, blocking the entrance. What do you want? Laura gave a dramatic scoff. Are you seriously punishing Mom and Dad over a vacation? I barked out a humorless laugh. No. I'm cutting them off because they've been lying to me for months. Using me like a damn ATM while treating you like royalty. But you already knew that, didn't you? She rolled her eyes like I was being ridiculous. Oh, please. You act like they forced you to send money. My jaw clenched. No, they didn't force me. But they manipulated me. The crying phone calls, the fake sob stories, the endless guilt trips. We don't know how we're going to make it. All the while they were pocketing my money and blowing it on vacations with you. Finally, Mom spoke up, her voice sharp. That's not fair, Mike. We struggled. I raised an eyebrow. Struggled? Really? You needed medicine money while you were sipping cocktails on the beach? That's some interesting definition of struggling. She shut her mouth fast. Laura sighed like this was all beneath her. Look, it's no big deal. Just turn the payments back on and let's all put this behind us. I almost laughed in her face. Are you serious? You think I'm just going to roll over? No. If anyone's paying for them, it's you. Dad, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. His voice was low, firm. We don't want your money. Good, I said, crossing my arms. Because you're not getting it. Laura let out a bitter laugh. Wow. So you're just going to abandon them now? From the couch, Anna finally stood, walking over with a look that could cut glass. Abandon them? You mean like they abandoned him? Lied to him? Used him? Laura snapped her head toward Anna like she'd just noticed her existence. Oh great, your opinion. And that's when it happened. Anna grabbed a fistful of Laura's salon-perfect hair so fast none of us had time to react. 1 second, Laura was standing there smirking, the next she was yelping in shock, clawing at Anna's hand. Anna leaned in close, her voice eerily calm. Listen carefully. You and your parents are never coming back here. Mike is done with you, and so am I. Now turn around, get in your overpriced car, and drive away. Laura shrieked, flailing until Anna finally let go. She stumbled back, her face twisted in outrage. You're crazy. Anna grinned, eyes glinting. Try me. For the first time in forever, Laura actually looked nervous. She turned toward our parents, waiting for backup. But they just stood there in silence, like the fight had gone out of them. Laura huffed, straightened her outfit, and shot me one last glare. You'll regret this. I smiled, calm as ever. Not a chance. She spun on her heel and stormed off, our parents trailing after her like defeated shadows. When the door finally shut behind them, I turned to Anna. She shrugged innocently. What? She deserved it. I couldn't help it, I laughed. A real laugh. The first one in days. Remind me never to piss you off. And that was it. That was the last time I ever sent my parents a dime. If Laura was so perfect in their eyes, then she could be the one to take care of them. The next morning, my phone lit up, and before I even checked the screen, I already knew who it was. My gut twisted. I thought about ignoring it. But curiosity? Yeah, it won. I swiped to answer. Mike, my mom's voice exploded through the speaker, dripping with outrage. I can't believe what happened yesterday. That girlfriend of yours put her hands on your sister. Who does she think she is? I leaned back in my chair, pinching the bridge of my nose. You mean when Laura showed up at my door, insulted me, and Anna told her to leave? My dad's voice cut in, harsh and demanding. She pulled Laura's hair. Mike. That's assault. You need to control your wife. I let out a bitter scoff. You need to control your daughter. Anna just gave Laura a taste of the same energy she brought into my home. Mike, we raised you better than this, my mom whined. I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. Yeah. You raised me to be your personal bank account. Forgive me if I'm not interested in any more life lessons from you. You're being disrespectful, she snapped. I sighed. I'm an adult. And as an adult, I didn't invite you to my house yesterday. You barged in, got put in your place, and now you're mad about it. You need to put that woman in her place, Mike, my dad barked. That was the final straw. I laughed, sharp, humorless. No. What I need to do is hang up. Michael, don't you dare, click. I tossed the phone onto the table and rubbed my temples, feeling the stress pound behind my eyes. That's when Anna came in from the kitchen, holding a steaming cup of coffee. That bad, huh? She asked, eyebrow raised. I looked up at her, a grin tugging at my lips. Apparently, I'm supposed to control you. She snorted, taking a slow sip. You can't even control your own sister. Good luck with that. I chuckled, thinking maybe, just maybe, that was the end of it. But 3 hours later, another knock thundered at the door. This time, it wasn't polite. It was angry, aggressive, rattling the frame. My stomach dropped. I already knew. When I opened the door, Laura stood there, arms crossed, fury all over her face. But she wasn't alone. Behind her loomed Dan, her husband, and the look in his eyes wasn't just anger. It was dangerous. Before I could even ask, what the hell do you want? Dan shoved past me, charging straight into the apartment. You think this is funny? He growled, jabbing a finger toward Anna. Letting your little girlfriend put her hands on my wife? Anna stood tall, unimpressed, coffee still in hand. Your wife ran her mouth in our house, she said coolly. Dan took a step closer, looming over her. Maybe she needs to learn a little respect. That was it. My body moved before my brain caught up. My fist flew, cracking him square in the jaw. He stumbled back, stunned, but I wasn't finished. All the frustration, all the rage I'd buried for a year, erupted. I let it out in punch after punch. Every missed bill I'd stressed over, every time they guilt-tripped me, every insult, every lie, it all landed on him. When I finally stepped back, Dan was crumpled on the floor, groaning. His face was already swelling, mottled with bruises. Laura screamed, dropping to her knees beside him. Are you crazy? I shook out my hand, glaring at her. You came here looking for a fight. Well, congratulations. You found one. Dan coughed, blood on his lip, eyes dazed. You didn't have to try so hard, man. I leaned down, voice low and cold. You threatened my girlfriend in my house. If you ever set foot in here again, it'll be worse. Laura helped him stagger up, her face twisted in fury. You just started a war, Mike. I grinned. No. You did. Dan, wobbling on his feet, muttered weakly, I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't have. Too late, I cut him off. Get out. They left without another word. The door slammed shut, and the apartment went silent again. Anna walked over, still holding her coffee, eyes flicking from my bruised knuckles to the door. She took a sip, raised an eyebrow. Well, she said dryly. This escalated. I let out a shaky laugh, shaking my head. No kidding. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. No more guilt. No more obligations. No more living like the forgotten child who had to buy scraps of love with his paycheck. I was done. Forever. After Laura and Dan stormed out of my apartment, the silence that followed was almost peaceful. No calls, no texts, no screaming voicemails. Just nothing. And honestly, I was fine with that. Anna and I carried on like life was normal, movies at night, cooking together, laughing over dumb things. For the first time in forever, there was no guilt weighing me down. Then, 3 days later, my neighbor Mr. Jenkins stopped me on my way to my car. He was standing there with his watering can, shaking his head with that old man grin he always had when he knew something juicy. Boy, he said, chuckling, you sure made a mess of things. I frowned. What do you mean? He leaned on the fence, eyes twinkling. Your parents and your sister had themselves a little disagreement. And when I say little, I mean the whole damn street could hear it. That made me pause mid-step. When? Last night, he said, nodding. I was out watering my plants when it started. Your sister pulled up, slammed her car door so hard I thought it'd rattle the windows loose, and started hollering before she even hit the porch. I raised an eyebrow. What were they arguing about? Mr. Jenkins leaned closer, like he was about to hand me state secrets. Now, I didn't want to pry, but they were yelling so loud, I swear the whole block heard. So, of course I moseyed on over and stood under their window. I laughed, shaking my head. Of course you did. He grinned. Your sister was furious. Screaming about how they should have treated you better, and how if they hadn't been so greedy, you wouldn't have snapped. She said it was their fault you cut them off, and now she's stuck dealing with them. I blinked. Wait, dealing with them? Oh, yeah, he said, eyes lighting up. That's the best part. Your parents told her it was her turn to start helping. Since you won't give Em a dime anymore, they said she's gotta step up. That stopped me in my tracks, and then I burst out laughing. Mr. Jenkins chuckled too. Oh, it gets better. She lost it, started screaming about how she's not their bank, how they should have saved money instead of blowing it on vacations. Called them leeches. I nearly doubled over. And then, he added, raising a finger like he'd saved dessert for last, she actually said, why don't you call Mike and apologize so he'll turn the payments back on? I wiped a tear from my eye. And what did they say? He smirked. Your dad said, we don't want his money anymore. And your mom, oh, your mom, she started crying, saying you let her down, that family's supposed to help each other. But Laura wasn't buying it. She looked M dead in the eye and said, you don't care about family. You care about who you can squeeze money out of. Then she stormed out like a hurricane. I shook my head, still laughing in disbelief. So they lost both of us in 1 week? Looks like it, Mr. Jenkins said with a shrug. Now they're just sitting in that house, no golden child, no reliable paycheck, nobody left to guilt into taking care of them. I let out a long breath and just let it sink in. For years, they'd played favorites. For years, they'd used me, dismissed me, treated me like second best. And in the end? All it took was one moment of clarity, for me to finally say no, and it all crumbled. And the craziest part? I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. I looked at Mr. Jenkins, a smile creeping onto my face. Well, I guess they finally got what they wanted. He tilted his head. How's that? I opened my car door, slid inside, and said, they wanted Laura to be their golden child. Well, now they can keep her. And with that, I drove off. For the first time in my life, without a single regret. Update. I really thought that was the end of it. Honestly, I did. My parents were finally left to fend for themselves, Laura was furious, and for the first time in my life I felt free. Life was quiet. Peaceful. Then, about a week later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mike, it's Dad. Call me back. It's important. I stared at it for a good minute, debating whether to just delete it and move on. But, curiosity has always been my weakness. So I hit call. He picked up on the first ring. His voice sounded almost desperate. Mike, listen. I don't want to fight, but we need to talk. I cut in fast. If this is about money. It's not about money, he interrupted. It's about your sister. That made me sit up straight. What about her? He hesitated, like he didn't want to say it out loud. Then finally, she's getting a divorce. I almost dropped my phone. Wait, what? Dan kicked her out, my dad muttered. He said he was done supporting her. And now, she's back here. With us. She has nowhere else to go. I bit back a laugh, my chest shaking with the effort. You mean the same woman who told me to just turn the payments back on is now broke and living under your roof? He let out a heavy sigh. Mike, please. This isn't funny. I leaned back on the couch, grinning ear to ear. Kinda feels like karma to me. There was a long silence on his end. Then he said, almost reluctantly, she wants to talk to you. I didn't even hesitate. Not my problem. And I hung up. I guess Laura finally knows what it feels like to be on the other side.